Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature 109, Counterblast to Tobacco, which is fitting of course because I'm weaning myself off of tobacco as we speak. This is a very, very short work. If you pay attention to length and you're not so into shorter primary source style materials, probably not the work for you, but if you're into sort of the medicinal side really, or sort of the early social tracts of the Renaissance period, yeah, you'll probably like this. This, of course, comes from King James, the same King James who wrote Demonology, which is his more famous work. But this is literally the first, or at least one of the first, very, very early anti-smoking tracts. Interesting piece of medical lore. Now, of course, link in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon. I have fully edited it for modern language. In some cases, I had to change sentence structure as well because, you know, things are in a slightly different order nowadays. Mostly, though, I tried to retain that just for originality's sake, but there were a few passages I had no choice on, and it takes, in this kind of very early so-called modern English, it takes quite a while. Second link to my books blog if you're interested in other similar works within the sort of herbal and medical category. Now, King James, of course, is basically the father of the burning times, so it's rather strange that he would also author this work, in which, for various spiritual and health purposes, he comes out and literally gives a counterblast to tobacco. Now, part of it is merely his own ad hominem, basically, oh, smoking smells bad, it's fucking with people's teeth, it's not a pleasant thing, and of course he was a non-smoker. But part of it goes into what was then modern medical theory, the four humors and so forth. For instance, in his roundabout logical way, King James posits that tobacco is not actually of the fiery element and thus can't work for certain cures that it's claimed to work for, but that it's actually of a watery humor, and then fire turns it into an airy humor, because of course it turns into a literal vapor. That's his own interpretation based on what was then modern theory. Of course, you've got to understand, people back then, they didn't understand the point of the idea of contagion in the germ sense. They knew that people got sick around one another and that disease was communicable, but they hadn't developed maybe fully modern explanations of how that process worked. It was really more about a miasmatic theory, or demons at the time, of course, King James. Here, interestingly enough as well, gives a very short passage, I think it's only a couple of paragraphs in length, on the fact that some people are highly superstitious in regards to sort of the health benefits of tobacco, which were lauded at the time, and he also admits, yes, it does have some health purposes, but people, they get addicted, they're using it way too much, they're poisoning themselves. But then we have to remember, of course, then later on, he gets paranoid about people trying to bewitch him, authors demonology, and ushers in the actual burning times of his own lands. Rather interesting interplay there. So it's a very interesting work. It's only 25 pages in length. So it's very, very short, but because it's a primary document of its type, if you're going to release it at all, unless you're going to bundle it with a bunch of other works by King James, and I already released an edition of the significantly longer Demonology, it wouldn't really make sense to try to alter it for length or anything like that. I had fun editing it, even though it was a pain going through every single line and finding 5 or 6 archaic terms. The average person in a modern audience, like, they're facsimile copies. Like every other occult work on Amazon, there are facsimiles. What modern individual who hasn't at least gotten some education in English, especially understands Old English of this style, are they even going to be able to make out what the heck it's talking about? The answer, generally speaking, is no, so that's why I modernize these works, which are often centuries old. I wouldn't release a facsimile because nobody would be able to read it for the most part in the first place, and if they were trained and able to read it, they probably don't want a facsimile copy because they would have no use for it. So again, link in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon, a second link to my books blog. That's about all. Peace out.